Namaste, everyone. So before we begin, let's do a chant. And in San Diego, we normally do encourage group chants. So if you know the chant, just join along. Asatoma. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Avir Avir Maeti Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tena Mam Pahi Nityam Tena Mam Pahi Nityam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. O Lord, guide us through and through, and ever be with us with thy loving presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. Well, thank you everyone for inviting me to Pittsburgh. This is my first time here. And I'm from San Diego. I've been there about 10 years. And prior to that, I was we have a monastery in Ramakrishna and then Hollywood. And I was in India for many years also. San Diego, how many know about Swami Chinmayananda? Okay. So do you know where he passed away? Where did he pass away? San Diego. So in Swami Chinmayananda's group, they consider San Diego. You know what does San Diego mean?
Diego.
Saint Diego. So in the Chinmayananda group, they consider San Diego, San Diego, San die ego, where the ego dies and you become a saint. They equate San Diego as Benares, Varanasi. So it's the Benares of America. Okay?
And you were from there.
So, anyways, this is San Diego. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about the images of Sri Ramakrishna. How many photographs of Sri Ramakrishna were actually taken? Anybody?
How many photographs?
How many photographs? How many photographs were actually taken during Ramakrishna's lifetime? 4.
I said 2.
Yeah, I have 4.
Okay. So, anybody else?
Most of it's not correct.
So there were actually 6 that were taken during his lifetime. All right. So out of those 6, 1 was destroyed, and then out of the 5, 3 are much more well known. 2 were taken after his Mahasamadhi, and out of the 3, the 1 is the one that you see behind you in the meditation pose. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be discussing the 3 images of Sri Ramakrishna to get a little bit better understanding of who Sri Ramakrishna is and what those photographs are. As a way, because we find that especially from our Ramakrishna order, we'll use the images to help us to meditate, to do worship, to help deepen our spiritual life. So how can we connect with them? So today we're going to be discussing why holy pictures or murtis are important, the history behind those photographs. Normally we think of those photographs as a static shot, a shot in time. But every shot we see has some instance of time. So when you see an image, it captures a specific moment in time, and there's a message that's conveyed behind that image. Whether it's one of freedom. Here Gandhi is making his own cotton to show the freedom that India is going through. Whether it's an image of power. It creates an emotional mood within us. And there's a message, whether it's this is a world where the atomic bomb, the splitting of an atom, how much power there is, the devastation it causes. Whether it's one of adventure, when you see this specific shot, there's a saying. Does anybody know what the saying is of this specific shot?
One shot.
What is it?
One short step of man for a giant step for man.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. So here we see a specific moment in time with a message. When we see Sri Ramakrishna's images, we're going to see the moment it was captured, but also how that moment leads to a timeless state. So we're going to start to look at, when we look at the images of Ramakrishna, the history that took place when that shot was taken. And how do we connect with them? We see these different images, but how do we connect? What's our emotional connection with these photographs? And finally, when you see these photographs of Ramakrishna, one Swami told me that they're not normal photographs. Normally we think of, if you listen to Swami Sarvapriyananda, we know there's a waking state. How many states of consciousness do we normally go through? 3 states. What are they? Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. In these photographs of Ramakrishna, we're seeing another state called Turiya, the 4th state, captured in these 3 different images. So what is that state? Ultimately what you're seeing is that Sri Ramakrishna is connecting himself to the ultimate reality in 3 different moods. What are those moods? So today we're going to sort of look, when we see that photograph, when we see a photograph of an avatar, there's a mystery behind it. There's something deeper. Usually a photograph is tied to a memory, and it brings us to a memory. But these photographs are tied to something deeper. So we're going to investigate what that is. So I usually do things more I'm not sort of a formal, proper type of, where you just listen and I like interaction. Again, I think it's actually the way to grow. In India, there's the idea that we have Shravana, Manana, Nityasyana. And when I was in the seminary in our Bellu Mat, I used to be in our training center asking all sorts of questions. And I'd get sometimes scolded for that. So, because in the Western way, we think of thesis, synthesis, and antithesis and synthesis. There's a dialogue that we engage in, and it helps us to grow and understand. So I think every place is right, but I encourage questions and interactions. So as we go through this, let's not make it a formality, but we're all sadhakas trying to learn and understand. So here, let's begin with. That's a good time. If you have a phone, we can put it on mute if you can. Okay. Holy Mother said this statement: "The body and the shadow are the same. What is this picture but a shadow? If you pray to Him constantly before this picture, then He manifests Himself through the picture." Very interesting statement. Anybody has read this statement? What is this? What does it mean to you? Anybody?
Yeah, because if you pray all the time, then automatically you will see Thakur's face in your front of your eye. This is my
Sure. Here there are no wrong answers. Okay. And every answer is right. We're seeing it from different points of view. That's good. Anybody else reading this? What is it? How does it strike you? What does it mean to you? It's a fascinating statement. So let's look at this. The body and the shadow are the same. What is this picture but a shadow? If you think that everything that has a shadow must have an object that's creating that shadow, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's a shadow, you follow the source to where that shadow goes, what are you going to discover? The body, the being, the thing that's creating that shadow. So what she sounds like she's saying here is that this shadow is nothing but the picture. Follow the source to the picture. That's the shadow. Follow the source. What are you going to go to? You're going to go to the being. The being of Sri Ramakrishna. There's going to be a living being there. It sounds like what she's saying then is, if you pray to him constantly to that picture, to that photograph, behind that photograph, there is the source that's creating that shadow. And that source will emerge out of that photograph and make itself known. So, it's interesting because when Holy Mother would pray to Sri Ramakrishna in the image of Ramakrishna, and she would give food to Sri Ramakrishna, she would see a ray of light, a living Ramakrishna, and a ray of light coming and touching each of the different food items. To her, Ramakrishna was living in these photographs. Another way of looking at it is that in order to cast a shadow, there's three things. You need a source of illumination, let's say it's like the sun. You need an object, and that object will cast a shadow. So in one other way, that source of illumination is consciousness. Consciousness then crystallizing, taking a form of Ramakrishna, and that form is being captured in this photograph. Pray to the photograph. Like the cell phone, it's on sleep mode. It's deactivated. If you start talking, if you start playing with the cell phone, what happens? It becomes activated. Start praying with sincere devotion, with sincere faith. The being behind the photograph, the illuminating consciousness, starts to come into being, make itself known, and it starts to respond. Is this what she's saying? Okay, so you're going to play M. I'll play the master. You read it's not going to be there. Just read.
You explained clearly the other day how God incarnates himself on earth.
Tell me, what did I say?
You told us to imagine a field extending to the horizon and beyond. It extends without any obstruction, but we cannot see it on account of a wall in front of us. In that wall, there is a round hole. Through the hole, we see a part of that infinite field.
Tell me what that hole is.
You are that hole. Through you can be seen everything. That infinite meadow without any end.
Sri Ramakrishna was very much pleased, patting M's back. He said, I see you have understood that. That's fine. Here, Ramakrishna is giving us a clue to who he is. He's saying here that there is a field, okay, that extends to beyond. What is that field? We are that infinite field. Sarvapriyananda has described our infinite nature as Satyam Jnanam Anantam. We are knowledge, we are truth, and we are infinite. We are timeless. We are present everywhere. We are that our true nature is that. But what happens is that there's a wall surrounding us right now. A wall that we feel imprisoned on the other side. We're imprisoned, our awareness is imprisoned in what? What is our consciousness imprisoned in? In the ego. What else? In the body. In the mind. Our consciousness is physically, I'm up to my skin encapsulation. This is where I feel my awareness ends. It doesn't go there, it ends right here. My mind is a prison. Okay, I feel a limitation by my thoughts. I can only know as much as my mind can tell me. My ego is my sense of identification. Whatever I'm identified with my body, I'm identified that I'm a Swami, I'm identified with the possessions I own. These are my limitations. He's saying, take your limitations, go through this hole. The hole is the avatar. Through the hole, you'll discover your infinite self. Is this what Sri Ramakrishna is saying? So when people like Jesus Christ say, when avatars like Christ say, I am the way, the truth, the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. And when Sri Krishna says, abandoning dependence on all duties, take refuge in me alone, I shall liberate you from all sins. Grieve not. From the Vedantic standpoint, they're referring to the avatars as the whole. Go through the avatar, go through the holes, and experience your infinite nature. So, these photos now, what they sound like to me is, what are these photos? They are tirthas. What's a tirtha? A tirtha is a crossing place, in the sense of a transition. The place used to indicate a place or a presence where the sacred is easily reachable. In the Upanishads, the crossing over refers to the spiritual transition and transformation from this world to the world of Brahman, the supreme, the world illumined by the light of knowledge. Are these photos then tirthas? That, where, from here, going through these photos, meditating on these photos, you can go into the infinite. Not only that, a tirtha can be a two-way crossing place, where the infinite can come to you. Is that what these photos are? Tirthas. And why do we meditate on the picture of an avatar? Because they represent the bridge between humanity and divinity. The bridge between the Nitya, the eternal, and the Leela, this ever-going play that we're experiencing. They help you cross because they can identify with your human side and take you to the divine. Ramakrishna was asked, he used to say this sometimes, there are two in here. There are two in here. There is the divine mother and there's the devotee. Who else to understand us? The devotee. And then to help us know all our problems, help us cross into the divine. That is the beauty of an avatar. So, today we're going to now try to uncover and discover the meaning behind these photographs. What we're going to do is, we're going to take each photograph, look at the history, we're going to look at the meaning, what some of the authoritative sources have said about this photograph, and then ultimately, what message is this trying to invoke within you? Each one of us will get a different message, but we have to understand what that message is for us. So in Vedanta, it's not enough just to listen to this. It's not enough just to take down information and have it as notes. You have to take this and it has to become transformation. Swami Vivekananda used to say, it's good to be born in a church, but not to die in one. Sometimes what happens, we as devotees, sometimes we come here, we listen to these things, and then we leave. And it stays in the head. And sometimes we think we know a lot about spirituality because we can quote scriptures and we can recite things and we have informational knowledge. But what spirituality matters is transformation. How does it get from the head into the heart? This is the biggest challenge. First step is understanding. This is true. But then how does it come from here to here so that it pours into our fingers, it pours into our vision, so we see the same world in a new way. It pours into our attitudes so that we see things and perceive things in different ways. And then it pours into our hands so that we do things in a different way. This is the challenge that we have before us. So when you're looking at these images of Ramakrishna, the goal here is to see these images in a new light. And in the light that means something to you. You had some question?
Yeah. So when it says it's a crossing place, I think, it means that there is a journey going on.
Yes.
And then there is a crossing. So the journey is the journey of the finite us with the ego and whatever towards the infinite. Is that, and where you meet the avatara, is that what you mean? The avatara tells you that because of the previous example of a whole, you suddenly get a glimpse of your own infinite self? Or what is the pilgrimage here?
So pilgrimage here is that...
Is that pilgrim place?
Exactly. By going through the avatar, going into the avatar, going through...
So I'm crossing over.
Yes, you're crossing over. Yes. And then also, in this respect, a pilgrimage is also where you go to pilgrim spots because they have this sacred vibration where the divine can cross over to you. Avatar means descending. The divine comes to you from where you are. So there's a two-way passage. You crossing into the divine, or the divine taking on a human form and coming to you. This is the transition point.
So whether it's a physical place where that is happening, or this journey and our trying to see what the Holy Mother said, trying to, or the Sri Ramakrishna's quotation, both of them, is that this transition where the picture becomes the reality, or my own limitations, suddenly I see through the avatar that no, actually I'm infinite. That is the transition, whether it's a physical place, or
whether it's a mental place, whether it's subtle, you'll discover.
So this is the bigger definition of
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
That's good.
So now let's go ahead and take a look at this photograph number 1. This is the first photograph that was taken of Sri Ramakrishna. This was taken in Keshav Sen's house, Sunday, September 21, 1879. Keshav Sen was a noted reformer and leader of the Brahma Samaj movement, and he invited Sri Ramakrishna to a Brahma festival at his house. The well-known singer Trailokya Nath Sanyal was present. Swami Raghavananda, a disciple of Swami Brahmananda, said this about this statement.
The devotional music threw Sri Ramakrishna into ecstasy. He uttered the word Om and stood up, raising his right hand. His outer senses left him and he went into Samadhi. Fearing that the unconscious body would fall to the ground, Ramakrishna's nephew and attendant Hriday supported Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna probably has been wearing his chadar either over his shoulder or hanging folded from his left shoulder, as is the custom. But when Ramakrishna rose, the chadar fell to the ground. Hriday picked it up and tied it around his waist for safekeeping. At this point, Keshav had taken the photo.
Okay. Now, I'd like you to stare at this photograph because I forgot to mention this in the introduction, but looking at the image of a photograph of an avatar is the same as also chanting the mantra. It's also a spiritual practice. By looking at this, you're creating vrittis within your mind that are purifying your mind. So, and the image is intrinsically linked to the divine, just like the mantra. Ramakrishna gave an example. A mantra is like a chain. Each time you pull the chain, you're pulling the log closer and closer, the log being the divine. This image is not only linked to a history, a time in history, but it's linked directly to the divine itself. So each time you're looking, you're creating a vikalpa within your mind. That's purifying your mind. So now, let's use the process of visualization. Look at it for a moment. Now close your eyes. What do you see? What do you observe? Sri Ramakrishna is seen standing in an ecstatic mood in the midst of Keshav's followers, engaged in devotional singing. His hands are raised, and his face has a unique expression. There is a sunscreen behind him, and at least one window open. Now, Vaikuntanath Sanyal described when Sri Ramakrishna was dancing, he described it this way. When the master was intoxicated with the joy of kirtan, he felt his divine body was as bright as molten gold and as soft as cream. He was dancing in a semi-ecstatic state, slowly moving rhythmically. While he was pacing back and forth, his left hand would be slightly up and his right hand raised. His left foot forward and the right one backward. What is the meaning? We can open our eyes now. What is the meaning? Well, during Sri Ramakrishna's time, one Swami had told me that the ambient religion, the most prominent religion in Bengal at that time, was the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. Just like in America, the Protestant Christianity is the ambient religion of America. So at that time, Sri Chaitanya's devotional love for Krishna was the most prominent religion in Bengal. So, most probably, Sri Ramakrishna was overwhelmed by the music. He stood up and he began to dance in a traditional Vaishnava way, where he went into samadhi. 4 copies of that print were made. 4 copies of that picture were made. From the Gospel of Ramakrishna we read, Rajendra, who says to Keshav, many people say that pointing to that photograph, the one of Ramakrishna, he is an incarnation of Chaitanya. Keshav, looking at the photograph, one does not see such samadhi. Only men like Christ, Muhammad, and Chaitanya have experienced it. Oh, I'm sorry. What is the meaning of these mudras? The mudras, does anybody, what are mudras? Anybody? Gestures. What gestures?
Indian dance.
Okay, so they can be like physical gestures expressing dance. Anybody else? So mudras in general are just physical expressions of your mental consciousness. So if I was angry at Hari, I'd start pointing to him and my face would get cringe and I'd go, I'm angry at you. And you'd see this gesture of my physical posture. In Sri Ramakrishna's case, there's a spontaneous outflow of his deep inner awareness. What we see, these are pictorial revelations of his direct communion with the ultimate reality at different expressions. And these mudras, these gestures of the hands, the face, the feet, they can be interpreted in many ways. What I'm doing is I'm going to give you one set of interpretations for these mudras. And let me preface this. When I was doing research on these pictures, there's not been any research done on these photos as the meaning of the photos. There are 3 publications to the photos, but they basically give you the historical sense. So there hasn't been really any explanation as to what these meanings are. So I'll tell you what I could find out, and then we'll explore that more deeply. When we look at them closely, we notice that his hands are in certain positions. Swami Premananda, a Swami of our order, a high Swami of our order, said that he's a direct disciple of our order, referring to the right hand, that's up, everything is there, and the left hand, not here in the world. Swami Shraddhananda, who was in Sacramento and passed away in 1996, anybody know Swami Shraddhananda? Had a chance to meet him? Very saintly Swami. Maybe I'll share some reminiscence about him sometime. But very saintly, very evolved soul. He had written an article on this specific image called Cosmic Meditations on Sri Ramakrishna. He said, the right hand is fully stretched upwards. The 2 open fingers are as if vividly pointing to that timeless reality which the words of Vedas and Vedanta try to indicate but becomes silent. So it's sort of like the Vishishta. In Indian logic, it's known as Arundhati Darshan Nyaya, where you see something bright to indicate something faint. You see something known to indicate the unknown. He's saying that his right hand is what we see is known, and it's being used to indicate the unknown, the infinite reality. Sometimes when in the weddings they'll show you the Vishishta is the bright star, and then it's trying to indicate something, the Arundhati star, which is the very faint star. So that's what Swami is saying, is his hand, which is seen, is trying to point to the unseen, the infinite. The left arm is bent at the elbow, with his forearm held in a horizontal position across the front of the master's body. The palm of the hand is held upwards, and the fingers are stretched widely apart, forming, as it were, called the Vairagya Mudra. This is the left hand, he's saying, indicating that the world is nothing, it's empty, and that God alone is real. So this is what Swami Shraddhananda is saying. God alone is real, and the world is fakhi. It's nothing, it's empty, constantly changing. There's no substance. Is this what this slide is trying to indicate? And then he goes on to say, the smile on his face brings to our mind that everything is here. We don't have to go out anywhere. Usually what happens is that one of the ways I came to spiritual life was because I felt the gap within me. The gap that I felt that nothing could solve. How many have felt this gap? Do you know what I'm talking about, the gap? It's a sense of void. So what it is that whatever you put into it, it seems to fill for a certain moment of time, and then it goes away. One economics professor describes this beautifully to me. I'm just going to tell you his description. He used the descending economies of scale. On one side of the angle, he had a graph. On one side of the angle, he had a quality of enjoyment. And on this side, he had quantity. And he used a specific example. He used beer. And he said, the first can of beer someone drinks, the sense of enjoyment is very high. The second can of beer someone drinks, the sense of enjoyment is not as good as the first, but it's still high. The third can of beer someone drinks, it's not as good as the second, but it's still okay. The fourth can of beer, he says, you get what's called a sense of optimal buzz. At this point, you feel that this is it. The fifth can of beer, you start to feel nauseous. The sixth can of beer, you feel like vomiting. And the seventh can, you pass out.
Okay.
Everything in life has this sense of diminishing returns. So no matter what you go out in life to fill the gap with, what's going to happen is, after a while, you're going to feel that this is not doing it. There's a point of satiation. It's the reason why we go to a restaurant, and the first time we go there, we really enjoy it. But then the second time we go and bring our family and friends, it's not as great. And so people like Apple, companies like Apple Computer know this. So after every 2 years, guess what? When you have your iPhone, and after 2 years when you're not getting that same sense of enjoyment, they put out the next version of it. This is the world. And this is what Swami Shraddhananda is saying. The world is like this. It's the gap. Whatever you put into it will dissolve out because your hands can't capture it. It's like this. What goes in, comes out. Stays here momentarily, but leaves. You were saying something.
Yeah, I'm asking you, why Thakur is smiling?
Yeah, we'll get to that. Good question. Let's see if we answer that. Okay? So this is another interpretation. I'm giving you different interpretations. You'll see what resonates with you. If we technically look at these hands now, what do we discover? There's actually technical meanings behind the mudras. So, in the right hand, we see, if you want, do this. In right hand.
Yeah.
This is called the Mriga Mudra. What does Mriga mean?
Animal.
Deer. So we said also deer mudra, Mriga Mudra, deer. Well, when does a deer have its ears up? Attention. Awareness. When an intruder comes, all of a sudden it has full awareness, full consciousness. So this means full consciousness, awareness, consciousness. With the left hand, technically, this is the Alapadma Mudra. Okay? A fully bloomed lotus. Right. And so, it's in this state, Sri Ramakrishna had said this about a mystical experience he had.
I saw a boy, 22 years old, exactly resembling me, enter the Sushumna nerve and commune with all the lotuses, touching them with his tongue. The different lotuses of those centers, 4-petaled, 6-petaled, 10-petaled and so forth, had been drooping. At his touch, they stood erect. At last, the 1,000-petaled lotus in the heart blossomed. Since then, I have been in this state.
Here, can it be implied that when all the lotuses bloom within you, you become awakened to your real consciousness, to your pure consciousness. Can this be the meaning of this photograph? Another meaning, which is Swami Atmarupanand from Houston told me this. He told me that, so in puja, we do what's called the Kumra Mudra. The Kumra Mudra is a tortoise mudra, right? So if you want to do it, it's like you see the photograph there? It's like this. When you do this, a tortoise, what does a tortoise do? When it retracts its limbs. When we do this, what happens is we feel our senses, in puja, we feel our senses being retracted. Sense of sight, sound. The mind which is going out is being retracted within. And what we're doing is we're meditating on the divine seated here in our heart. Okay? So this is what we do in puja. You'll see that when we do a meditation dhyana on Ramakrishna, we do this mudra. But what Swami Rupanand is saying is that the lower portion of the hand is the bottom portion of that mudra, and the higher and the right hand is the top portion of the mudra. What's he implying? Is that the divine is here. That the divine is so vast, it's so expansive, it cannot be contained. So the top blows off. The divine is ungraspable. It's not holdable. It's infinite. That's why you can't grasp it. Is this what this photograph is saying? And Swami Chidananji had said that one dancer in South India saw this photo back in the 1900s. He didn't know anything about Ramakrishna. And he said, seeing the photo, he asked, who is this dancer? He was told by Swami that it was Sri Ramakrishna in Samadhi. Then he said, this Indian dancer said, this mudra in the Natya Shastras indicates the infinite. This indicates the infinite. Is this what this photograph is implying? And Swami Vijnanaji, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, and Swami Swahanandaji's guru, said this about looking at Sri Ramakrishna's face. He said that looking at the photo, Ramakrishna's face is Anande Futifata. It means it's a certain kind of melon, like a pomegranate, that becomes so ripe, it's about to crack, it's about to explode. Here he's saying that there's so much joy within Sri Ramakrishna that it can't be held, it can't be contained, and he's bursting with joy. Is this what the face represents? So, could this mean now, when we see this overall photograph, that Ramakrishna is listening to songs of the divine, there's kirtans being played, and then he felt a surge of divinity rise within him, all the lotuses opening up, and like a rocket ship, he jumps off from the ground, and then he spontaneously starts moving in a rhythm, in a dance, back and forth, and then he explodes into stillness, into samadhi. And then somebody else was telling me the screen behind could be thought of, is that Maya, the wall of Maya that we're all experiencing? And is the window the avatar? And what's interesting is that when you look at the people, what are the people looking at? When you look at the people there, what are the people looking at?
Watching him.
So you see, interesting? So the people here are all watching him. What about the people here? What are they looking at?
Camera.
They're looking at the camera, right? So, because the camera was the latest in technology at that time, and you had this big field camera, so these huge glass negatives, and it takes about 2 seconds of exposure to capture this image. If there had been any movement, the image would have been blurred. So it's very interesting. If we were there, where would our attention be? Would our attention be in awe of the divine? Or would our attention be in the world, attracted to the latest gadgets of the world? Where would we be?
Second option.
So,
Is a question.
yes.
No, that's it. Please go ahead. No.
Oh,
No.
He had a question.
Yes.
So one slide before, where did that description came from about those 4 petals, 6 petals?
So that's Ramakrishna. So that was Ramakrishna giving a description of his own state.
And that is in Gospel?
That's in the Gospel, Shram.
That's in,
Yeah.
thank you.
So then, now, when you see this photograph, what does it evoke within you? When you see this photograph, what do you experience within you? Do you experience maybe the non-dual mood? Do you feel a sense of infiniteness, freedom, stillness, permanence? Does it make you feel like closing your eyes and getting into that space? Here, freedom means more than freedom of choice. It means being free from being affected by things. No matter what's happening, you're not affected. Does it give you tranquility? Do you rise above emotions, the emotions of the world? Do you feel that sense of peace when you see this? Look at Ramakrishna's eyes, how they're closed, unaware of anything happening outside. Look at the sense of detachment he has, the indrawnness he has, and his face expressing joy. Does it depict that I am pure consciousness and not concerned by the play of nature? When you see the hands, look at the hands. It's almost like this is Prakriti, and this is the bird escaping Purusha, escaping Prakriti, the clutches of Prakriti, going into freedom. Does it give you the sense that I am the formless, non-locational, eternal, not subject to birth and death? All perceptions, all feelings, all sensations, thoughts, they just rise within me, they float within me, and then they subside within me. But I am not affected. I am in the eternal state of joy. Is this what this photograph is invoking within you? So, this is the first photograph. The next photograph to be taken is referred to as the studio photograph. This was done on December 10th, 1881 at 3 p.m. It was in the Beau Bazaar, Calcutta, Bengal photography studio. It was the same photographer who took photograph number 1 that was hired. Now Ramakrishna went to his studio. From the Gospel of Ramakrishna, I think you're up. No, you're not up yet. Okay, let me read you from the Gospel of Ramakrishna. Surinda, let me go back a phase. Today, is this your reading? Okay, you read.
Ramakrishna referred to this experience. Today, I enjoyed very much.
No, not that one. I'm sorry. Let's go back. I'm giving you now the instant of the history behind this photograph. Surendra Mitra took the master in a carriage to the Bengal photographer studio. The art of photography was explained to him, and he was shown how glass covered with silver nitrate takes the image. As the master went into samadhi, he was photographed. Now, Sri Ramakrishna did not like to have his photograph taken. So the only way to take his photograph would be if he was not conscious of it. Why? And one Swami explained it like this. He says, because being conscious of being photographed would mean that your human elements would be seen. But being in samadhi meant more the divine elements would be seen. The body would feel more transparent. Now, why did Ramakrishna then, if he didn't like his photograph being taken, why did he go to the photography studio? That'd be a question we can ask. According to Swami Vidyatmananji's article, another article on this photograph, he said Ramakrishna had a lively interest in the things of the day. He had gone to the zoo, the circus, the theater, museums, and many other places. The Gospel says he inquired about the process, Ramakrishna inquired about the process of photography. And when the spiritual implications elevated Ramakrishna's mind, the photographer seized the opportunity. what were the spiritual implications that raised Ramakrishna's mind so that he was able to be photographed.
Today I enjoyed very much the machine by which a man's picture is taken. One thing I noticed was that the impression does not stay on a bare piece of glass, but it remains when the glass is stained with a black solution. In the same way, mere hearing of spiritual talk does not leave any impression. People forget it soon afterwards, but they can retain spiritual instruction if they are stained inside with earnestness and devotion.
Swami Chaitanya Maharaj said, you have to have the devotion, emulsion of devotion covering you. When we become a real seeker, that's what transforms. When we're really searching, I can't live without the divine because the world is not where I want to be. I need to get the taste of the divine. Then the information that's being said starts to get processed and goes from the mind into the heart. Or if you're a real lover of God and all you do is think about God, your beloved, you want to know how to please the divine, then whatever pleases you're going to take, whatever you see that the divine loves, that becomes captured in your mind and you want to give that to the divine. So, what is the meaning? When I looked into discovering the meaning behind this photograph, there was nothing that was said about the meaning of the photograph here. But one thing we do know is that the studio portrait was used and inserted in an oil painting, illustrating the harmony of religions. In this picture, Ramakrishna was pointing to Keshav that the people of different religions proceed to the same goal by different paths. And if you see this one here, look at this. This is happening in the 1870s. Now, what you see is that you have a Christian church, you have a Shiva, here's a Shiva temple, and I think this is a mosque here. And then you'll see that you have a Jain, you have a Shiva, a Shiva, here's a Jain, a Vaishnava. You see Christ and Chaitanya are dancing together. And here's Sri Ramakrishna. This is in the 1870s, depicting harmony of religions. This is one of the first photographs, paintings that we see. Different religions coming together. It's unheard of in this time. When Ramakrishna was in Dakshineshwar, you had the togetherness of the Vaishnava tradition, the Krishna, of the Shakta tradition, Mother Kali, of the Shaivite tradition, of Shiva, together in one place. That was also unheard of. Now to go from that to different religions of the world. Imagine, he's the first person that we know of that's experiencing the divine in various different religions and reaffirming the Vedic saint that Ekam Sat Vipabhuta Vedanti. Truth is one. Sages call it by various names. I mean, it's really amazing what to think. We are seeing the first time an image of an avatar. We don't really understand the importance. It's the first time that the avatar is being captured. We're seeing the infinite captured in time, in a form. Everything about that photograph has meaning. It's just we have to start understanding what this is. So I think it's extraordinary. So this is depicting the harmony of religions. And when I go, I'm part of the interreligious community in San Diego, and I was president of the Interreligious Club. It's very interesting. As time goes on, what Sri Ramakrishna has been saying in the 1870s, everybody has their path. Everybody has to follow their path. And as you follow more and more your path, what happens? Where we know religions are different is in the outside periphery. If you think of religions as 3 different circles, concentric circles, the outside circle is more the customs, the do's and don'ts. We do this, we don't do this. These are the customs we follow. This is what usually religion is about when you go to any formal religion. Then as you go in, you start to see the practices of religions. There's meditations, there's devotional scriptures, there's prayer. In the practices we find a lot of similarities. At the heart of religion is what? Is experience, anubhuti. And when you come to the experience, that's when you start seeing that we are very much the same. when it comes to the experience of peace, of expanding one's consciousness towards everybody, a feeling from me to a we to an us, the feeling of us, oneness with the community, the feeling of oneness with the world. That's where we start seeing the saints, not the speakers, the saints of all of these various traditions. When they describe the experiences, that's when we find the similarities. He is showing that in this picture. In the 18th century, first one to be speaking about this.
So Surenmitra, somebody had this painted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is commissioned.
Yeah,
and then this was
that
hung.
Was so clever.
Yes, commissioned and hung with Ramakrishna there because he was saying Jotomat Totopat.
Yeah.
As many ways, so many. Don't forget. I'm going off track. But anybody, whoever would come to Ramakrishna, whether you're Muslim, Christian, they would find their path in him. They would find that he was depicting, if you're a Christian, they'd find the essence of Christianity, the essence of Christ in him. They would see Christ in him. A person who loved Shiva would see the form of Shiva in him. A person who loved Mother Kali would see Mother Kali in him. It's like he was like a stem cell. Depending on expression, that cell can take any expression depending on what your needs are. So you come to that point where his awareness is at that what we call the bindu point. The bindu is where the bindu it goes into the infinite. From the infinite, it becomes the finite. From the finite, you go into the infinite. That's the point where Ramakrishna was told to stay Bhava Mukha. The point of the Divine Mother told him 3 times in meditation, remain in Bhava Mukha. Bhava Mukha is the threshold between the infinite and the relative. His awareness was there. So from that point of awareness, he would see everything coming, merging into that point. So whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's science, whether it's art, all of them merging into that point of singularity. So they would say, one of the greatness, Ramakrishna would be at that threshold where he's sort of leaning. At one point, if you say something, he leans in, he merges into that infinite. Okay? So you have to be careful because if you say Gopal or anything, these are triggers that can merge him into the infinite. But he would be at that threshold, sort of leaning there, but aware of everything. So seeing everything in the world. Anybody who's crying, anything who's needs, he's there to be with you. So Bhava Mukha. Mukha is facing Bhava from the earth, facing us. Whereas if you take a look at Shiva, Shiva's the other way. Shiva's at that relative point, but he's facing the absolute. He's leaning towards the relative, so he can hear there's a scene in Superman. He can hear the prayers, and anytime he just slightly turns, a ray of light comes, gives you a shot of grace, and then he again turns back and he's in samadhi. But Ramakrishna was facing us. That's the beauty of Sri Ramakrishna. So, when we go back to this photograph then, what do we see then? Well, we see that his right hand, going back to this. So when Ramakrishna, in the Gospel, when Ramakrishna was shown this photograph, he says, yes, it contains everything. This is the ideal of modern times. Now, when we observe the photograph, we see that Ramakrishna is, take a good look at this photograph at least. Try to visualize it in your mind. He's wearing a jacket. His right arm is where?
Pedestal.
On the pedestal, the studio prompt. It's facing where? Down. Left hand is pointing to the right. And his eyes are what? Open. Compared to photograph number 1, which were closed. Okay. Now, what do his hands signify? What are the mudras here that we can see? Well, the right hand is different from the picture number 1 in 2 ways. In the right hand, we see that photo number one, his right hand was pointing upwards, towards the transcendence. Here, his right hand is pointing downwards. To where? The world. Good. Also, you notice his thumb. His thumb is spread out compared to photograph number 1, where his thumb was in. This mudra indicates, this is actually the jacket that Sri Ramakrishna wore on Kalpatur Day. And from this jacket, Swami, what's his name? Swami Nirvananaji was able to measure the jacket and then looked at the photograph and made the ratios that Ramakrishna's height was 5 feet 9 inches and a quarter. Ramakrishna was actually taller than Swami Vivekananda, who was somewhere between 5 feet 7 to 5 feet 8. So this photograph then, the mudras, the right hand indicates love. In sign language, this is the mudra that indicates love. And where is that love being pointed? It's being pointed to the world. Okay? The left hand, see the left hand? The left hand is the Avagunta mudra, but it's actually reverse Avagunta mudra. In puja, if you've ever seen the Swamis doing puja, you notice that they have food here. They'll have food. What do? They take Avagunta mudra, they'll do the Avagunta mudra. What it means is it's creating a veil, creating a shield, demarking that this food, a protective barrier, so that subtle vibrations is protected from subtle vibrations. And this food is designated for the divine. So we're creating a veil, a shield. What Ramakrishna is doing in this left hand, it's reverse Avagunta mean. He's unveiling. Okay? So, when we look at the photo as the whole, and don't forget, his eyes are open. He sees everything. And his face is radiating bliss through that smile. So when we look at the photograph as the whole, it indicates the immanent aspect of God, the personal aspect of God, Ishvara, a cosmic person, the presence of a living God who is manifest in this universe. This is the God that we pray to, Ishvara, the consciousness, the divine consciousness that pervades the universe. In the first photograph, it represented the infinite Brahman, the transcendental. You are that. Aham Brahmasmi. That is your identity. In the second photograph, is depicting Ramakrishna as the cosmic being, a person who we pray to, and a consciousness that what? That responds to us. In the Nirviguna state, in photograph number 1, as the transcendental, is there any response? Who is responding to who? You are that. There's only Brahman alone. So here we're seeing that God can be, the divine can be depicted in many ways. As the transcendental, and here, as the immanent, as the personal God, as God that normally we think of, that we pray to, that when we're in trouble, we ask for their advice. Now, so, the right hand then, when we see the right hand indicates, what does the right hand indicate? Love. Where is the love pouring to? To the world. It is when the divine says, Eko aham bahutya syam. I am one. Let me be many. Out of the overflowing fullness of love that I experience, the divine experiences, it flows into the creation of this universe. It flows into the creation of this world. It is that love that's manifesting as all of us. Swami Chidananda said that the 2 fingers that are pointing downwards represent duality. Okay? And the other 3 fingers represent the unmanifest Brahman. Tripada sa amritam devi. 3/4 of our experience is in the unmanifest Brahman, and 1/4 in the manifest. Now, what is duality? This is the photograph. The 2 fingers saying, those 2 fingers there are pointing to duality. What is duality? Every experience in the world is dualistic in nature. Anybody see the Super Bowl? The last Super Bowl? So, this photograph was taken at the very last moment of the Super Bowl. What happened? Tom Brady was going back to pass, throwing the Hail Mary, throwing the last pass. And then, at the moment when the ball was dropped and New England had lost the game, Philadelphia had won. The right photograph, to our left-hand side, is Philadelphia. To the right is New England. The same incident, the same experience had different experiences. And an interesting experience is that when Swamis come to Hollywood, we're supposed to take them and show them around. So one of the places we show them around is, they say, the happiest place on earth. And what is that place? Disneyland. So if you notice here, you're going to notice that.
Oh, there's Swamis.
There's this Swami here is your Swami?
Swami Swahananda.
No, Swami Atmagyanananda.
No.
Yeah, that's Swami A.
Okay.
And this is Krishnamurti Maharaj. He's from South America. And that's me as a brahmachari. And so you'll notice one thing is very interesting. Look at Swami A. Look, he's wearing a t-shirt that says "Life is good." But now, notice his knuckles. His knuckles, they're very white. They're really holding on. They're tight. Look at his face. His face is cringe. Remember I told you it's in a mudra? His face is like, you could see, although his shirt says "Life is good," he's not looking very good. Okay?
Very happy.
No, he doesn't look happy at all. Now look at Krishnamurti Maharaj and look at me. We're really enjoying this ride, all right? Our mind is completely immersed in this world. So when I look at this photograph, what do I see? I see the three gunas. Thomas here, we are our attention is where? Captured in the body. That's where Thomas is. Inertia, we're captured in this body. Rajas means we're captured in the world, okay? Now if you look closely, look at the person behind me. This person. He's there, he's just meditating. Look at his face. He's in perfect tranquility. Like sattva. He's just complacent. He's just pure. And sattva. And then what's really strange, if you can see this close up, you see this woman here? Her tongue is actually out like this. Her eyes like this. And her hair is disheveled. She looks just like Mother Kali. So what do you see? You see the three gunas, Shiva and Mother Kali. This is the world. Alright?
Okay.
And if you're like Swami Atmagyananji, Swami A, you can't wait to get out. This is the world. This is every experience. Every experience is dualistic in nature. The same experience we're experiencing is experienced differently by every one of us. And if you look at it, this is how the divine creates its divine play. When someone was asked, I'm seeing right now, I'm seeing names and forms. I'm seeing people right now. I'm having a human experience. So through this, I'm seeing something, and I'm experiencing colors through sights, through my senses. I'm creating this audience within me. Now, if you look at a bee, they'll see this world as ultraviolet light. Look at a bat. They'll see this through echo sound, through echo. They'll have a completely different experience of this world. Who is having the right experience? Infinite are the ways. There's infinite number of creatures. Infinite are the ways of experiencing this world. We are seeing the divine is experiencing through us one perspective, and experiencing through infinite perspectives through infinite creatures. This is the divine in its creation. This is Leela for the divine. Infinite. And that is all coming out of love. The overflowing love that's coming expressed through this mudra. That's going. And if this is the divine love that's creating, guess what? What's that left hand? The left hand is his
unveiling.
The left hand is his grace.
Oh,
He's saying, it's the impulse that we feel within us that he puts it. I've had enough of the world. Now I want to go back to my home. That is his grace. His grace is taking his hand, that mudra, and uncovering the mystery of this world, uncovering what we see. We've had enough, that the reality behind what we see. This is his grace. Okay. So that we'll say that even sometimes that Swami Vivekananda had a definition for his grace here. He said that what did he say here? He said that okay, well, let me just finish. This is the path of Nivritri. And so he uncovers and takes our darkness and takes us back to the light. This is this Vidya Shakti. When you see this photograph then, what do you feel within you? What do you feel within you here? Do you feel the devotional mood within you. If the first one, you felt the non-dual mood, here, do you feel a sense of relationship? The divine is now taking on a form, taking on a cosmic presence, a cosmic being. And now you are here, he is here. And now you have a relationship. And if you have that relationship, then are you seeking someone you can pray to worship, who's going to guide you? You're seeking the divine author of this universe, the cosmic being who will do it, who will respond to you, who will answer your prayers. Do you feel a sense of surrender? Does this photo create the feeling of surrender in you, that God will take care of everything, and whatever I do, God will take care of everything, and I will do whatever you want me to. I'm surrendering to that pull that you are trying to bring closer to. You're trying to bring me closer to you. So whatever you give me, I am satisfied with. Whatever you give, I accept, because I know you have brought it to me. Because I know you are love. So everything happening, even painful experiences that sometimes we go through, are filled with the love of God. For what purpose? For my own spiritual upliftment. The only problem is I just see them in a limited way as pain. But in a larger context, I can see them as God's grace. Let me one more statement here. Thakur used to say, "Oh Mother, I have to act, but please see to it that I act in accordance with your will. I have limited knowledge of what I should do in this situation. I cannot see the ends of my action. Oh Lord, you whose eyes are open to everything, you who knows everything, please see to it that what I do be for the well for myself and for others as well." When you see this, do you feel a sense of surrender? I was having this talk yesterday and today. We were talking about pilgrimage. And sometimes this is very difficult. We talk about why surrender sometimes is so difficult. Vivekananda said this about surrender. He said that a ship all of a sudden comes near a magnetic rock, and its iron bolts and bars are all attracted and drawn out, and the planks get loosened and freely float on the water. Divine grace thus loosens the binding bolts and bars of the soul, and it becomes free. When you get into the gravitational pull of the divine, what starts to happen? What happens when you're a meteorite and you come into the atmosphere of Earth? What happens?
Burn up.
It burns up. Yeah. This is what we call tapas. Tapas means heat, means austerity. When you start to come within the divine pull of God, then what happens is she says that this is enough for you. You've had enough of the world. I want you now to know who you really are. Now it's time for you to know your real self, to know your true relationship with me. And so now I'm going to burn away all the impurities, all the obstacles that are preventing you from seeing me, preventing you from knowing me, preventing from knowing yourself. So what happens when we get into the pull of the Lord? Then all of a sudden we start to become more sensitive. We start to see even the subtle things start to we feel within our heart. And then the divine brings more and more, sometimes negative experiences. For what purpose? To remove the last impurities that we have that's keeping you separate from God. One time there was a question, Dr. Malai Das, I remember in Swahanandaji's doctor, asked to Swami, Maharaj, it seems that after I came to Sri Ramakrishna, it seems that my friends seem to be going to the parties and things, and they seem to be doing okay. But I seem to be having more problems. Why is this? And Maharaj was saying, because you've now come into the pull of Thakur, of Ramakrishna. And he's not going to let you go that easily now. Before, when we're outside in space, we're kalpa vikalpa. We're sometimes yes, sometimes no. But then once there is a sankalpa, an affirmation that now I'm ready. And it may not be sometimes a conscious. within us, sometimes there's something unconsciously that says, now it's the time. The buddhi makes a decision. Manas is that part of our mind which is vacillating. Oh, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? Then the buddhi says, it's time. It makes an affirmative, yes, I will do this. And then the ego says, what does that mean to me? It means to me, now I have to go in this direction. And now all my energy will go in this direction. So it goes. And then what happens is you take one step forward, God takes 10 steps. So you take one step and then all of a sudden, no, I really can't do this. God will grab you and force you. And that is why we experience sometimes the difficulties of life. That is why we call it, in one respect, I give you an example. When I joined the order, after 3 years I had to go to Bellarmont. And so one of the things I noticed I used to see brahmacharis coming, all these new monks, new brahmacharis, novice people. They were leaving their hearth and home. And they didn't know anybody. They come to Bellarmont, they don't know anybody, they're brand new. And so what happens, you see, is in the beginning, they're with Mother. And there's Ramakrishna shrine, there's Mother's shrine, there's Swami Vivekananda shrine. But you see these new ones going to Mother because they're talking to Mother, and they're telling Mother, they're crying to Mother because there's nobody else that can understand them. So they're going, they're saying, oh ma, go, oh ma, Mother, I have nobody else to do. So you see this. Then once some ego comes, once then they get settled, then you see now they start going over to a little bit more to a Ramakrishna, and then they go to Swamiji, they're getting a hankara, I want to do this, I want to change the world, we got to teach Swamiji, all these things. Okay? Then what do you notice? Two types of people I notice in Mother Shrines at 3:30 in the morning. The really young ones and the really old ones. The really old ones, why? Because then I was noticing what they were saying. So, oh Mother, at the end of it all, I realized that it was you. You had come to me through these different experiences. You had come to me as the person that I most hated. You had come to me through all these forms. For what purpose? To help me go through this experience and grow through this experience. There was something impinging on me. There was something that I couldn't remove by my own power. There's some thorn of ignorance that only because of your deep fire did it burn away. And afterwards I recognized that it was you and you alone had come through this. And Mother, I thank you, I thank you, I thank you, thank you. Is this the experience that we get when we see this photograph? The cosmic being. So, in the first photograph, in the meditation of Sri Ramakrishna, there's 3 aspects that we meditate on Ramakrishna 1. The first one is the Hridaya Kamali Madhye Rajita Nirvikalpam Sadasada Kila Veda Titameka Sarupam Prakriti Vrikriti Shunyam Nityam Ananda Murtim Vimala Paramahamsam Ramakrishna Bhajamaha. The first part is saying that you are the undifferentiated truth. You are beyond all dualities. You are one without a second. You are the infinite, transcendental aspect. You are that divine. And Tattvamasi, you are that, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that. That is what we are. Ramakrishna is describing to us what we are in our true infinite nature. First photo. Could that be what it's saying? Second photo. You say, Nirupapamati Shukmam Nishpapancham Nideham. It says, you are extremely subtle. You are the infinite dwelling within all beings. You are the Antaryaman within every heart. You are the Lord of all. You are Ishvara. You are the one that guides this universe. You're the one, it's through your will, everything is moving. I can't see it, but now I'm starting to realize it. Everything is acting according to your will. You are within every single being, in the heart of every individual. Only they can act as you make them act. They can only move as you move them. And so each lesson in life is a teaching experience for me to grow from the experience of tamas to rajas, from rajas to sattva, from sattva to see you in all infinite beings, and then even to transcend that to your own true divine state. Is this what this photo is saying here? Now, let's go to the third photograph. This is the photograph that's most commonly used. It's the meditation portrait. This picture was taken in front of the Radhakanta temple in 1884. Ramakrishna was 48 years old, and it occurred Sunday, 9:30 a.m. And according to Swami Nirvanananda, this happened.
Bhavanath Chatterjee, the master's devotee from Varanagar, wanted to take a photograph of the master. One day he requested him very strongly to give his consent, and on the afternoon of the next day brought a photographer along with him from Varanagar. He could not make the master agree. The master just went away near the Radhakanta temple. In the meantime, Narendra arrived on the scene and heard everything. He said, "Wait a bit, I shall put everything straight." Saying this, he went to the veranda to the west of the Radhakanta temple, where Sri Ramakrishna was sitting, and started a religious conversation with him. The master went into Samadhi. Swamiji went and called the others and ordered them to get ready quickly to take the picture. Quote, in the state of Samadhi, the master's body was bent on one side, and therefore the cameraman went to make him sit erect by softly adjusting his chin. But as soon as he touched his chin, the whole body of the master came up like a piece of paper. So light it was. Swamiji then told him, "Oh, what are you doing? Be quick, get the camera ready."
So his body was saying the body was so light, it started to float in the air.
The cameraman took the exposure as hurriedly as possible. The master was completely unaware of this incident. After some days, when Bhavanath brought the printed copy of the photo, the master remarked, "This represents a high yogic state. This form will be worshipped in every home as time goes on."
Okay. So take a good long stare at this photograph. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment. Okay? What do we observe? Ramakrishna is sitting with his hands lightly clasped. His thumbs touching each other. His fingers are interlocked. His eyes are half open, half closed. His lips appear half open. He is wearing a dhoti around his waist, which extends to his shoulder. Vaikuntinath Sanyal described Ramakrishna's complexion as fair, like a mixture of turmeric and red paint. His lips were reddish with vermilion, and he had a sweet fragrance coming from his body, like that of a lotus. Okay. You can open your eyes. So, when we see this photograph, sometimes we've heard too that there's some distinguishing features of an avatar. Does anybody know? Have you heard of something? Some distinguishing features that they say avatar has? What?
Long arms.
Long arms. Yes. Anything else? So, here's some of the signs that some of our Swamis have said. Ajanu Bahu. His arms are extremely long, and they extended down to his knees. This is according to Swami Brahmananda. Also, his eye line, his eyes were way above his ears. Normally my eye line goes to my ears. His eye lines would go way above his ear. He had the eyes in the shape of a lotus. And Snigna Vardha, he had a shining complexion. Mother had said that he had the color of gold, and his complexion blended with his golden amulet he wore on his arm. It's interesting, when I asked, where are these, the Swamis quote this sometimes. So I asked, where do you find these remarks about the avatar? Then one Swami told me these are actually located within the Valmiki Ramayana. And it's the conversation that Hanuman had with Sita. He was trying to prove that he was a representative of Ram, and Sita was like, well, prove that you know Ram. So then he describes the physical features of Ram, and these are some of the descriptions that he gives. And that's from the Valmiki Ramayana, the long arm, shining complexion, like that. Now, notice the back of the photo. What do you notice in the background? It's like a what?
Globe.
A globe, yeah. So why is that? Why do you think that is?
The temple, I think, Radhakanta.
You think of the temple?
The arch.
Yeah. So what actually it is that Avinash Chandra, who was the photographer, what happened was he was using those big type of cameras, right? And so after you take a photograph, the glass stain, you have to put into these wooden sleeves. The story goes that he, after seeing Ramakrishna literally up in the air for just a slight moment, he was still dazzled from that photograph, from that incident. So when he took it, his hands came down, and the glass actually fell, and it sort of cracked. So what happened? He couldn't take another photograph. So in the studio, then he created that crack into an archway, and it was a Victorian archway because Victorian archways were prestigious at that time. Okay.
So that was actually he was hiding the crack.
Yes, exactly. Then, what did they say about this photograph? Oh, I think I have it. This was the camera lens that was taken. They used to take this photograph, and the camera lens, and the actual negative of this photograph is in Champapur, in Calcutta. And Swami Vishuddhananda had said that, what did he say here? He said, Sri Ramakrishna Ramakrishna had seen the photograph and went into ecstasy and touched the photo's head several times, saying, "This photo is nicely taken. The mood is very high, fully immersed in him. Here the Lord is fully depicted in his own nature." And Holy Mother had a photograph that was given to her by a Brahmin cook. I don't want to read the whole thing, but at the end she says in the red, "I saw the Master take in his hands the bell leaves and flowers kept there for worship and offered them to the photograph." The photograph was in her room in Dakshineshwar, and Thakur would come, and one time he took flowers and he offered them to his own photograph. And Thakur was many moods. Because I'll just describe another incident in the Gospel of Ramakrishna. Had stated that when Ramakrishna returned to his room, he accompanied by M, and he was carrying a tray of red vermilion powder. And then he was slowly offering them to all the gods and goddesses in his room, except two photographs, one of Christ and one of himself. And when I asked Swami Chaitanandaji why he didn't offer to Christ and himself, Swami Chaitanandaji said that because in Christianity you don't worship it you should worship it in accordance to how it's worshipped according to their tradition. And secondly, he said that Thakur probably thought of himself in the state of Brahmin in that case, and so you don't worship Brahmin. You worship Ishvara, but not Brahmin. So, what does this photograph now show? What does it mean to us? Well, to me, what it means is humility. Girish Chandra Ghosh once said that, what is Sri Ramakrishna's weapon? He said that Ram was the avatar and had a bow and arrow. Krishna had his flute. Chaitanya had his begging bowl. But what did Ramakrishna have? His weapon was his humility. Ramakrishna did not contradict anyone. Instead, he would embrace them. He would gently correct people by stating they're right, but pulling them into something more. He doesn't contradict anybody's religion. He would say, "You're right, but could be more than what you think." He corrected people without embarrassing them, hurting their ego. When you see Ramakrishna, you see humility, and it endears everyone to him. It makes you feel that he's approachable. There's a term called sulabha. Sulabha means extremely easy to approach. And when you see him, you think he's there available at all times, anywhere, under any circumstances. Ramakrishna and Christ were known as Patita Pavana, purifier of the fallen. Anybody, especially the low, would take refuge in them. Previously in ancient India, what happened in Shankaracharya's time, if you could defeat the other person's logic, then they would surrender to you, and then they would join your group, and then they would follow your lifestyle. But Ramakrishna never wanted that. He would always show the truth of your own religion, but only broaden your understanding. He would say, follow your own path, but follow it sincerely. Go forward in that path. So, when I see this photo, an avatar is one who descends to us, comes to us at our level, and he takes the form of various gods and goddesses according to our mood. That's most congenially with us. You have to remember, according to our swabhava, according to our inner disposition, our inner software, we have to find what our swadharma is, our own path that's unique to us. Every one of us will have a different path to the divine. You may say, well, I'm a Bhakta. We all may be Bhaktas. We all may be Gyanis. Yes, but within that, still, you will have your own different chemistry, your own mixture of approaching that infinite. So, if I were to ask you now, in photo number, photo number 1 represents the transcendental aspect of God. Photo number 2 represents the immanent aspect of God, Ishvara. Photo number 3 represents the avatara aspect of God. God who descends in a human form down to our level so that we can learn from His life and teachings to bring us to the divine. And finally, let me just ask this thing here, is that when you see each photograph now, in photo number 1, photo number 1, in photo number 3, the avatar here, what kind of mood does it evoke within you?
You mean number 3?
Number 3, yes, the bottom one. What kind of mood do you feel? Anybody can say anything here. Meditative. Serene. Okay. When you see him in that, when we meditate him, what do we feel? Surrender. So, go ahead.
I was saying it's Pragya, so all kinds of, it's a conglomeration of all kinds of moods and everything is the same, all kinds of.
That's true, but then is that what you feel? So it's what do you feel inside? I'm asking your own feeling. Your subjective feeling.
I offer myself.
You offer yourself. It's good. So in this photograph, number 1, what happens is as the avatara, we feel much more of an intimacy with him. We see more of his human side than his divine side. When you see the avatara, you're looking through your own lens. You're looking through your own mind. You're seeing what? Zoom lens. We're all looking at the infinite reality. We're seeing it through 3 different lenses. One is the zoom lens, one's a wide angle lens, and then one is with no lens. When the avatara, the zoom lens means you're seeing only your beloved. The world itself dissolves. It's only you and your beloved. You and the one you love. That's all that matters. So what happens in that type of relationship? It's a very intimate relationship. It's a relationship that's filled, you feel joy when you sit down with them. You feel a sense, when you sit down, there's a sense of inner harmony. The mind can stop swerving around. You know, when some people used to tell me when they got into the presence of Swami Swahananda, they had so many questions. What happened? It wasn't that their questions were solved, their questions were dissolved. Being in his presence meant that if they felt that a sense of serenity, peace overcame them. And all of a sudden, the questions they had, they forgot. And Maharaj would ask, what's your question? I don't know. Does he give you that sense? Inner harmony. And when you see him, sometimes you can get that, wow, Asakya, he's my friend. He's my intimate one. I can confide in him. I can confide in him things that I can't confide anywhere else. I can release what's in my heart. We all need some place to release to. He's one that can accept. He doesn't judge. One of the great things about Ramakrishna, there's no judgment. My parents still judge me. Everybody's love is conditional. Some greater, some less, but there's still some conditions that we place on our beloved. Whether you're a parent towards your kid, or whether you're a kid to your parents, we are embodied, we still have conditions. Some subtle, some greater. But there's no true unconditional love. He has that unconditional love. What do I mean? Accepts as is. And what does he want? He wants you to be don't have any projection. One of the difficulties we find in spiritual life, again, people come in and they want to, Maharaj, they want to show themselves in their very good way. I'm such a good devotee. I do this, and this. Even if you play the story at some of our, they don't care for that. When they start to respond to you is when you you have really serious things when it comes from your heart. Prayers are answered not by, oh, I need money, I need this, I want my kids to go to get richer. It's when it sinks down from that and the core of your heart starts to speak. Sincerity. This is what I truly need. Evacuate all the prayer, the tears, the prayer. Ultimately you get, what is it my real needs are? Then that's when consciousness starts to respond to you. And that's when, then the Guru says, now we can start to work. Before that, Maharaj, how many jumps should I do? 10,000 a day. I'll try to do this, I'll do this. Then you find out all these things you can't. And when you finally can let go of your pretenses, your projections, stop projecting yourself to him, stop projecting yourself to everybody, accept who you are ultimately. This is an experience we all have to go through. And then humility is the ability to experience ourselves as is and then see greatness in others. Then the Guru says, now I'm ready to work with you. Now I can give you the mantra. Now I can tell you, this is what you should do. Oh, Maharaj, like Girish Ghosh. Maharaj, can you do this? Can you do your japa? No, I can't do my japa. Can you please do a prayer? No, I can't do a prayer. Okay, I can't do anything. Give me the power of attorney. Okay, I guess I can do that. Okay? That I think I can do. And then there's this question, what does that mean? I'm opening the door. Wait, am I doing it or is Ramakrishna doing it? It creates a sense of awareness within him all of a sudden. It's like, am I doing this action or is Ramakrishna doing this action? This all of a sudden awareness. Before, one of the teachings Swahanandaji taught me, when I used to go into his room and do his seva, I'd go into his room one time and then close the door from the backside. Boom. And then Maharaj one time told me, he said, open the door again. I opened it up. Then he said, close it. Then I closed it. And I closed it kind of like just softly. And he said 2 words. Be conscious. Be conscious. Do everything you're doing, but do it with consciousness. Because before we can offer something, we have to be conscious of what we're doing. Before we can offer our actions, we have to be aware of the actions themselves. One stage, Swami Sarvadeva says, you can make a Ramakrishna sandwich. In the beginning, you say something in the morning, whatever I do, I offer to you. And at the end, whatever I've done, I offer to you. And so everything in between gets offered to you like a Big Mac sandwich. Okay? And the more times you do it, the more layers you have. Okay? But ultimately, we have to become aware of every single action we are doing. And as we're doing this, the second part then is as I'm offering this to you, where it becomes a continuous state. So that whatever you're doing, the karma doesn't get contained here. It flows in you and out to the divine. And the feeling is, at the end of the day, I don't know what I've done. Some of these great swamis, when they lecture, sometimes Swami Sarvadevanandaji and this other swamis tell me, at the end when they lecture, Maharaj, what did you say? I don't remember what I said. They became an instrument. Atmapriyanandaji Maharaj in Vivekananda University, he used to tell me, before every lecture, I raise my heart, I raise my consciousness to my heart. He just does this action. Raise my consciousness to my heart, and then throw my ego aside. So there's a little action he used to do, like this. Raise my consciousness to the heart, and throw my ego aside. And then whatever I've done, it's like, then you create a vacuum. And in that vacuum, the divine flows. It's like, if you're not there anymore, if you get out of the way, you create a vacuum, now the divine can flow into you, and then out of you. And at the end, what happened when you're an instrument? I don't know. It was the divine work through you. So, is this what this photograph number 1 is telling us? We get the sense of intimacy, the sense of love, the sense of that of closeness as a very close friend. Even the sense that, oh, Thakur, you're my mother, I'm your child. I don't know what's good for me. You do what's good for me. And then last thing, also you feel a sense of ease and comfort in their presence. And another thing, you know, when you dress someone, like when you see the photograph here, you don't just dress oh Ramakrishna, oh God. You dress them in the second person. Your relationship is so close. You say, you take a drink of water, you have this food, to me, or you dress them as you. It's not, God, please take this. Ramakrishna, you don't address them in third person. They are present right there. You don't address someone who's there by their name. You take this. And they accept it because you're giving it out of love. This is the intimacy that should be created when you're seeing this one. Then, the photograph number 2, when we see this God as the Ishvara state, what starts to happen? Well, you remember Arjuna in chapter 11. Arjuna had the experience that he had gone from friend, Krishna as my friend, to Krishna as the Vishvarupa, the Ishvara state. He had said, Arjuna has shown the vision of Krishna in his Vishvarupa darshan. He has only known Krishna in his human form, as an avatara. Upon seeing and experiencing this vision, Arjuna realizes that Sri Krishna is Ishvara himself. He is in a state of awe, wonder, and amazement. How does the relationship change? When you're looking at the Ishvara state and you're thinking of God now as the God of this infinite universe. It's a little bit hot sometimes, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'll make it quick. But when you see God in that infinite vast, He is the consciousness behind this vast universe. How does your relationship change now? It becomes a little bit more formal. It's a little bit more distant. You're in awe. There's a sense of fear sometimes. There's a sense of that, your will is enacting upon all these things. You start to pray to Him. Let me see this. You feel what starts to happen. His power aspect becomes more revealed to you.
You were talking about which?
In number 2.
Yeah.
The number 2.
Yes.
In the Ishvara state.
Mm-hmm.
The Aishwarya aspect becomes more revealed to you. Whereas in photograph, in the third, in the Avatara state, the Madhurya aspect becomes, His sweetness is more revealed to you. But in this one, the power, the glories, His omniscient, His omnipotence. You see the glory, the vastness, and you feel, I am so small. He is so vast. What respect, humility, and awe that He is guiding you. And you feel strength and security knowing He has your back. This is the Ishvara state. You feel a sense of dependency, a sense of surrender, a sense of helplessness. And in the last one, the transcendental state, you see the non-dual state. A feeling of sense of perfect serenity. There's the feeling of identity. Actually, now you're beyond emotions. There really is no feeling at this point. You are bliss. You are joy. So, let me end off by just seeing, I think I had this thing here, by looking at the photo and just looking at the thing, hearing the song, and see what type of mood creates within you.
Really, really good.
So I hope at least in some ways we can get a little bit different meaning, and everybody, one of us will come up with our own meaning when we look at these pictures. And as you were saying in the beginning, the reason for these pictures, at least for our point of view, Ramakrishna devotees, is that they become our Ishtadevata. And in the Swami Harinamananda, in Ramakrishna's great master, he talks about how visualization becomes vision. And he goes through the process as you're meditating. Maybe you're looking at the meditation pose of Sri Ramakrishna, and if you're not good at visualization, maybe only you can focus with open eyes. You see his face. Maybe then you close your eyes, you can visualize his hand. Maybe you see his feet. But you keep going on, keep going on, keep going on. And then as you continue, he says, what starts to happen is then you start to see more and more of the entire body. And what more than that starts to happen is then the image starts to become luminous. What is happening now, as you're going to the more subtle layers of that picture, you're finding that there's a consciousness. The light of is starting to illumine that. Remember, every time, I didn't mention, but Ramakrishna had gone into the states. People described him as golden light. Light was coming out of his body. And as you start to meditate, the light of Ramakrishna starts to become more and more revealed to you, until one point you start to see the static photograph as living. You start to see, he starts to blink at you. There's a little bit of movement. You start to see that there's some, he's there, he's moving. Darshan, you see, is not just a one-way process when you're looking. Darshan is a two-way process. When you feel that when you're looking at the photo, you feel the presence of the divine looking back at you. This is true darshan. And then as you go along and just keep meditating, then that light, the consciousness which is illuminating that image, becomes more living until even that form disappears. Like the window. The window is the hole. When you go closer and closer, from afar, all you see is your own reflection. And as you go closer and closer, you start to see what's beyond the window. And the window being the form of Ramakrishna. And when you get to the source, to the window itself, you see that infinite vast field. So as you go more and more towards Ramakrishna, one Swami told me, it's not even the form that matters. The form starts to dissolve. And what you experience is that infinite light. That light of who you are. That is that Chidoham. You are that consciousness self. So, this is something we can all practice. And whatever way you can create a relationship. Sometimes I used to look at the photograph and play some music. And I think it's very important. We need to create using our emotions. We hear a lot of talk. It's good. We learn studying our Vedanta Sara and our Aparoksha Anubhuti. We're studying all these scriptures. But again, this is knowledge. And yes, knowledge can transform you. But sometimes, for most of us, really we have to get transformation through the heart. We have to feel. Feeling sometimes is, if it's our innate nature, then go with your feeling. So, in the process of loving Ramakrishna, what starts to happen? You're starting to fall in love with self. You start to see, as you do something for him, it's not even the act of doing something for him, it's the act of love, which you start to feel transformed. It's the act of love. It's like light. It starts to illumine from within you, and you start to feel good. You love because love itself is the reward. Yes. It's not, you just need an object to love. In the beginning, we need some sweetheart. We need somebody that we can show our love to. But after studies show, after 2 years, if anybody's got recently married, after 2 years, it's natural to fall, not say out of love, but then you have to transform into a deeper love. What usually happens, they say, the first 2 years is what we call the infatuation of love. And usually in the Westerners, we say, I fall in love. Well, when you started that experience, you can only fall out of love, if that's what you're defining. So in India, sometimes the arranged marriage, you think about it, you have to learn, the process is continuously over the time, a lifetime, learn to love. And so and that's what I've seen sometimes when we talk about these Swamis, these evolved Swamis, is their love. Swami Brahmananda used to say, my love is so deep that you shall not know. If you come to know, then I have failed to love. I used to ask, what is the meaning of that? This is in the Eternal Companion. And it was said that what is distinguishing is we're not superficial lovers. We're not like, I love you. Sometimes I used to have there was an American person in our ashram, and she called her daughter on the phone and goes, I love you.
Yeah.
And then she goes, mean it. And I thought that's interesting. Why do you say mean it? Or because everybody says I love you, but I really mean it. And then I used to sing. You know, it's interesting. I was born and raised here, but when I grew up, it was all Americans, and I used to see how the Americans would love their kids, and then at home, you know, they didn't show that type of actions. And so as a kid, sometimes you grow up feeling that your parents don't love you, because you're not seeing how love is expressed
in the Indian,
in the Western way. It's a physical gesture. There's a kissing. It's verbally expressing. But the Indian parents, we don't do that. At least traditional Indian parents, they don't. So you
first generation doesn't.
No. Yeah. And then Swami Swahananda actually said this. When he went to his hometown, he said, "Mom, come here, sit with me." He's in this. Where is he from? In the Habiganj. Mom, come here, sit here. I only have 5 hours to be here. Come sit with me. And she was busy cooking. And then his older brother told him, let her do her cooking. You see, this is how she expresses her love. So, the Eastern love is more expressed through actions. And it's not communicated as through verbal gestures, through physical gestures. It's more through the actions. And so, if you're a child, sometimes you cannot read how love is, then you don't understand. Then you feel sometimes you're not loved. Sometimes that's why we say afterwards, oh, my parents love me. Oh, the Swami loved me. I was getting scolded so many times. What kind of love was that? That time you're feeling, what is this?
When it is happening, you have no clue.
You don't have to. And sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes for them to be gone to recognize it was their expression of love. So what I'm saying then is this in the divine love, is that we are always linked. Swami Vivekananda used to say, religion is the eternal relationship of the eternal soul with the eternal God. So all we're trying to do is uncover it. So that is what we're trying to do today, is how can we, I'm giving it in that sense, how can we uncover, we have love. Love is there. We just have to uncover it. These are ways of uncovering that love that's within, so then we can feel joy, so we can feel fullness. So when we're giving love, we don't expect it back. Then our love doesn't have to be conditional. Even if I am something and I'm doing something, at the back of the mind, there's a limit as to how much I can give before I say, now I need something back. Because we're embodied, we all have our boundaries. Some more boundaries, some less boundaries. So we have boundaries. So idea of sadhana is to keep pushing those boundaries. Push the wall of Maya. Keep pushing. That's why you have to keep forcing, keep pushing. But eventually, when you can just find, when you're full, then that fullness is expressed as love, and then you're just giving it freely to anybody. It is just from what's in it. So our prayer is that maybe we can also experience that in this life.